All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Thrilling 30 Orion Pax. A pretty cool little figure here. This was, I think, one of the first times we actually got like a figure of Orion Pax. I mean, I know that there was like the e-hobby, like G1 Orion Pax that was like the repaint of G1 Cup, but I was pretty sure this is the first time we got like a dedicated mold of Orion Pax, or at least one of the first times. And yeah, no, he's a pretty neat interpretation. Definitely not super accurate to like how he showed up on screen in the G1 version. Like with a lot of these guys, I want to say this guy is more IDW inspired, but I not really, because like really I think that the design of Orion Pax in the IDW comics was then later based on this figure rather than the other way around. I don't think that it really, originated in the comics, and then this was a design based off of that. But either way, he's a pretty fun little design here. He turns into a neat sort of like Cybertronian like pickup truck kind of mode, and it's like I do like the way it looks, but it is a little bit earthy for my for my taste in terms of like you know, does this feel like an alien vehicle? No, this kind of feels like a tripped up, Earth pickup trucks, which is, it's like kind of the Siege effect pretty much, but not quite to that extent. But either way, it's a pretty neat looking vehicle mode. Rolls pretty decently well. He does come with a couple weapons here, kind of like shorter, stumpier version of his like classic Ion Blaster. Like if we compare it to the one that came with like Studio Series 86, you can see a lot of the same design cues are there. It's just kind of like a smaller, kind of like shorter version of that. And then he does come with an Energon axe here, which is all done in this like sort of like orangey pink translucent plastic, and then the handle is painted, which looks pretty cool there. Now, unfortunately, in terms of storage, you are supposed to just like plug it onto the side here with both of these things, which is, has never been my favorite thing. It's just like, oh yeah, we make the vehicle mode look a little worse. I don't know, rather than having integrated storage. I kind of get it with these weapons because there's not really like room for it, but I don't know. I feel like they could have at least found some way to like have this plug-in up here to at least be sort of like part of the vehicle mode, and then the axe be at least a separate thing. I don't know. Personally, I don't really think of like Orion Pax as being a character that necessarily needs weapons, because I kind of prefer the sort of like archivist version of him rather than in the IDW comics, where they made him a little bit more of like already kind of an action hero before he was even Optimus Prime. And whatever, that there's not really neither here nor there. But basically, I don't necessarily need this figure to have weapons, but they are cool accessories, just not they don't necessarily integrate in the way that I'd like for him. But yeah, in terms of comparisons, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, so you can see what they look like together. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime, so you can see what he looks like with a version of, like what he becomes basically. And then here he is with our most recent Orion Pax toy, which of course is just the retool of the Studio Series 86 Cup figure there. And yeah, I kind of prefer this vehicle mode in terms of just like looking more alien generally, but to each their own. I definitely think that this guy draws a lot more direct inspiration from G1, but he's a cool design in and of himself. But yeah, in terms of transformation, he's got some pretty neat stuff going on, honestly. First thing you do is you take like the front bumper here and kind of fold it up like this, and then you can take these entire halves of the front part of the truck, and they latch in a couple places down here, but basically you want to, I don't know why they're giving me such grief right now, but come on. There we go. Separate those, and then they come out on the side here on these hinges all the way like this. They kind of get caught in the wheels and stuff, which is a little bit annoying. And then basically you want to take the arms here that are just kind of like plugged into the to the legs in the back here, which loosens up this whole section. And then when you split the legs, which is a very tight connection there, that basically gives you the clearance to take these entire front halves of the truck and just double hinge them down to sit around the legs like this, which hides the wheels, and then, also kind of completes his shins there, which is a really, really cool transformation step. I like that a lot. And then his feet are just like kind of hidden underneath here. You just fold them down like this and then rotate them around at the ball joint. And then you rotate the whole thing around at the waist, and there we have his legs done. And I always thought that was a very neat transformation step. I like how that works. And then for the top section here, basically you want to take these sections here, they'll double hinge out to the side. Just leave them out like this for now, because then that gives you the clearance to fold this section up. You want to take these wheels, they'll hinge to the back like this. There's a lot of things that sort of need to happen at once here. And then you double hinge this section down like this until it kind of clicks into place there like that. And then you can take the shoulders and just collapse them the rest of the way so that these little bits here will go over these tabs here on the side, which I guess are sort of like, rear view mirrors, but I don't know why he'd need rear view mirrors as a Cybertronian vehicle, but whatever. But either way, they just tab over like that. And then you kind of bring down the arms at the elbow here, straighten them out, and then flip out the hands from the inside just like that. And then last but not least, you take this top panel here and you kind of flip that back, which also reveals his head. And there we have Orion Pax in his robot mode. And yeah, I really like this design. Like, obviously, it's not very G1 inspired in terms of being accurate to the G1 cartoon, but it's just a very neat design. Honestly, it does feel like a little bit more along lines of like how he looked in like Transformers 1, even though this figure came out like over a decade ago at this point. But yeah, no, he's a very nice, well-proportioned figure. I like how he's got the wheels on the back here. Yeah, he's got the panels sticking up, which is, maybe would look a little bit better if it folded back more, but it doesn't bother me all that much. I like how he's got the nice yellow details here on the waist piece, and then like the classic 2 lines and yellow arrows there on his forearms. He's got his like headlights kind of picked out, and yeah, no, just a very nice kind of like well executed figure, honestly. In terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint. He does have that like classic thing that they kept doing at the time where he's got like the clear insert for the light piping, but then his eyes are just painted anyway, so which is a little bit strange, but whatever. But yeah, his head can rotate around and look a little bit up and down, though it does kind of bump into this back panel at a certain point. The shoulders here are on a swivel here, not at the bit where it actually connects, and then they can hinge out to the side here. He's got a bicep rotation. You can use these as like butterfly joints, and honestly, like this one stays locked in place a little bit better than this one does. But you're not really supposed to use those, but you can. But yeah, bicep swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. He does have wrist swivels, which is nice, and they can also hinge in a little bit for transformation. He's got a waist cut. Hips are on ball joints that can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel there. Only about that much knee bend, unfortunately, which is really strange because he definitely like has the room for it. Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. He was just a little bit stuck there, but things do tend to like bump into this section here, and then you kind of have to like force it past to get the rest of the knee bend, which doesn't like feel great, but it's not too big of an issue. But he does get a little bit over 90 degrees of bend at the knee. I was thinking when I was doing that, I was like, I didn't remember him having that limited knees there. The ankles are on ball joints, which you can rotate around and then get a little bit of tilt like that. But then also for transformation, they are on these forward and backward hinges. So he's got pretty, workable foot articulation in terms of being able to like hinge the foot whichever way you want. So yeah, he's a pretty well articulated figure. Like there's a little bit of issue with like the clearance of the knee, but once you push it past that point, like he's got decent tight knee joints. He's got just adequate joints all around. He definitely feels like up to snuff in terms of like modern articulation. In terms of his weapons, obviously you can just give them to him to hold. It's a little bit weird that just like this whole section is painted and you do slide it in, so it's like that can tend to scoff off at a certain point, but he does look cool holding the axe. Now, unfortunately, there really is no storage for either of these. He doesn't even have any like 5mm ports anywhere on his person. So again, personally, because there's no storage really in either mode, I just kind of leave these off to the side and just like leave them as is, but to each their own. But yeah, it is unfortunate that he doesn't have the great weapon storage there. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipes. You can see pretty much an average size deluxe there. The one thing that is kind of noticeable about him is he's got kind of a tiny head, because just like, the proportions of the figures, I feel like they've steered a little bit more towards that cartoony sort of like bigger head look in recent years, whereas like it kind of like when you put the two of them together, it makes him look like he's got just like a really tiny head, just proportionally to the rest of his body. I definitely prefer the larger heads of modern figures, but that's always been something that's kind of particularly funny about him. Here he is again with Earthrise Optimus Prime, so you can see what the two of them look like together. And then last but not least, here he is with our newest version of Orion Pax, who honestly I cannot remember what subline he came in. But yeah, no, like I said, I think I prefer the more G1 design, just in terms of like having him as my definitive version of what Orion Pax looks like on my shelf. But just as a figure, this is just a really, really fun toy that's got a lot of really good articulation. He does have really nice weapons, even if they aren't things that I think like really properly store on the figure. They just looks pretty cool. He's got a nice vehicle mode, a really interesting transformation, and yeah, overall just a very solid toy, and honestly up to snuff in terms of like modern figures and modern articulation. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. Definitely recommend checking out this guy if you haven't already. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Thrilling 30 Orion Pax.